Hello there, Sully here, the retired tanker yanker. I think it was Mark Twain who said everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. Well, it's a reality as a truck driver that you're going to have to deal with weather. Freight doesn't stop because it's snowing or raining, or there are tornadoes or hurricanes. Well, hurricanes, I don't know. When I was with Highway Transport Chemical, when Hurricane Sandy was rolling through here, we did shut down. We were shut down the day after because there was no power at Dow Chemical. And since Dow Chemical was our biggest customer, we didn't have freight to move. Had they been able to load the trucks, you better believe we would have been out there driving. So, I did what I usually do on this unexpected day off. I went out to a bar and had a few beers. And all the Saturday regulars seemed to not be working on that particular day, because they were all at the bar and we had an impromptu hurricane party. Now, I may have mentioned that at Highway Transport Chemical I was required to run Canada. Well, I wasn't required. Actually, I used to stand in line to run Canada. Now, I hear people say, "Oh, I don't want to go to Canada. Oh, that hassle at the border." Well, it's not a hassle anymore, because you get your paperwork pre-cleared. They have something going into Canada called the E-Manifest, and you file that before your trip is begun. And usually the customs brokers have apps, and the customs broker that Dow Chemical uses was Livingston International. I had their app downloaded on my phone. All I had to do was enter in my PARS number and would tell me if my load had been cleared or not. If it had been cleared, I would just run into my dispatcher and say, "Yo, what's up?" And yeah, there were times when there were snags and I had to wait at the border. Which brings me to the topic of, excuse me a minute, Super Bowl 52. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles! I was scheduled to leave out Friday at around 8 p.m. Well, I got a call from my dispatcher saying, "Hey, the load's ready, Sully. Get your butt in here and start running. They need the product." I was holding glacial methacrylic acid. Now, glacial methacrylic acid freezes at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And this was early February, and it had been a particularly cold winter. And the Dow Chemical plant in Bristol had a little problem with their pipes freezing with this stuff in it. So Dow Chemical up in West Hill, Ontario was hot for the product. They needed it in the worst way. They said, "As soon as you get up here, we're going to pump it off." So I got in there and I checked with Livingston, and they said, "Your paperwork hasn't been cleared yet." So I gave them a call and they said, "Oh, we're just missing one thing. It's an invoice that the shipper has to send us." I said, "Okay, they're probably just behind on their paperwork because there's several loads going up there." So I took off for the border. I got there maybe 7:30 p.m. and my paperwork still hadn't cleared. I had to wait in the impound area. So I made frantic phone calls, and it was Friday. Everybody had gone home. The night shift didn't want to answer the phone. But hey, it wasn't my fault. I was getting delay pay, $22 an hour to sit in my truck. So I made the call. I had to call night dispatch in Knoxville and tell them, don't have the paperwork. They said, we're on it. We'll let you know when we get it and send it up. Well, it didn't get up there until 3 p.m. the following afternoon. Okay, not a big deal. I still have plenty of time to deliver it, take my 10-hour break, get back to Philadelphia and watch the Super Bowl. Thing is, overnight, it started snowing. Okay, not bad, but I had to keep the engine running. I had to keep my heat in transit moving so that the product wouldn't freeze up. And there still is always a possibility, even with heat in transit, that the product is going to freeze up in the discharge line. And while I got there, while I was waiting, another one of our trucks showed up with the same problem. And this poor guy, he's a guy who used to drive for Schneider. He came to work for us when I was a trainer, and I trained him. I didn't have to show him anything because he already knew what to do. I just had to show him how we do things. Easiest student I ever had. He actually taught me a few things. See, that's the thing. Just because you're the teacher, don't be upset if some point you have to be the student. Well, the paperwork cleared, and I drove the remaining 186 miles from Lansdowne, Ontario to Toronto. West Hill, Ontario is actually a neighborhood in Toronto. It's in the section of Toronto known as Scarborough. Home of the guy who was my favorite player on the Flyers, Wayne Simmons, although he's with Nashville now. Broke my heart when they traded him. But I digress. So I got up there, and they were like, Sully, we are so glad to see you. Get over on that scale, get to the rack, and we are going to offload you so we can start making product. They said, where's the other guy? I said, he's still in customs. He had the same problem I did. So they offloaded me. I parked and took my 10-hour break. And I guess it was about 4:30, 5 a.m. when I started out. It was cloudy but clear as far as there was no snow. Until I got about 75 kilometers east of Toronto. And it started snowing. And I mean lake effect snow. I mean whiteout snow. I mean, I was slowed down to 40 miles an hour, and I'm thinking, man, if I don't make it home, I am going to be one unhappy camper. I drove out of the snow around Gananoque, Ontario, which is about 10 kilometers from the border crossing that I used. So I crossed the border at Alexandria Bay, New York, and I started south, and I got no further than Watertown when the snow started again. This time the lake effect bands were coming south off of Lake Ontario. And I was in whiteout, and again I'm slowing down. That lasted for, maybe a half an hour. And then when I drove out of it, about 30 miles north of Syracuse, I hit another band. I drove out of that band just about 5 miles north of Syracuse, but I was behind a plow train, so I was doing 25 miles an hour. Got through Syracuse, about 20 miles south of Syracuse, I hit another band of lake effect snow that I drove in for about 30 miles, then it cleared up, and then when I got to Binghamton, I hit another band of lake effect snow. 5 bands of lake effect snow, 5 bands of whiteout conditions, slowing down in some cases to 20 miles an hour. Got south of Binghamton, and the lake effect snow started, but it started snowing in earnest. I stopped at Gibson, PA for fuel, take my 30-minute break, and then turn and burn. Down through Scranton. Now, because this was a hazmat load, even empty tankers have to keep the placards on until it's washed out. So I had to avoid the PA Turnpike to avoid going through the Lehigh Tunnel. It was corrosive, and you can't take corrosive through the Lehigh Tunnel. So instead I had to go down 80. I was coming down, I think, what is it, 381 comes out of Scranton? Down to 81? Or no, 80 to 381. And I took that down to US 31 or PA 31, I forget it is. That's the bypass where you go through the Poconos. And it was snowing in the Poconos. Not whiteout conditions, but, you know, by this time the sun was up. But I was in snow. I had to drive all the way down to I-80, from 380 over across I-80, down 81 to 22, then go west on 22 to the PA Pike south of the Lehigh Tunnel. Got on the PA Pike. Snowing pretty good the whole way. It wasn't until I got on the PA Pike, heading south on the Northeast Extension, I didn't run out of the snow until I got to Bethlehem. Then it turned to rain. The road was just wet. Turn and burn. I think I got back to our Croydon, PA service center. Notice I said service center. Highway Transport does not have terminals. They have service centers. And called my roommate to come and pick me up, which she did. Stopped on the way home to grab a case of Yuengling. And I got home with an hour to spare. But that's how I almost missed the Super Bowl. The first Super Bowl that my beloved EAGLES won. And I think I almost missed it. Oh, if I had, I would have been one unhappy camper, like I said. And fortunately, my dispatcher had it set up so I wouldn't have to be in the work till after 10 a.m. the following day. So I was able to stay up and watch the entire game, and I couldn't have slept at the end of the game anyway because there was fireworks going off in my neighborhood. But that is the reality of trucking. You're going to have to drive in weather. Now, especially when I hold bail. There was no stopping for snow, and I was running out from Philadelphia out to Somerset to do a relay. I would swap with the driver and come back. And in the wintertime, you get that nuisance snow almost every night out that way. It's just enough to make the roads slick. They had the salt trucks out there every night. And it was a rare night when they didn't have to salt the roads. So it's May now. So winter's over. We're not seeing any more snow. But I guarantee you, come next November, especially you rookies out there, you're going to go into your first winter. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Because I have driven in some nasty, nasty, nasty weather conditions. The worst thing is ice, freezing rain. That scared me more than anything. Well, it's 4:30. I have to go catch a bus to go to South Philly to watch my Fightin' Phils. And yes, just like my Eagle shirt, I have a Grateful Dead Philly shirt too. Steal your base. This is Sully, retired tanker yanker, saying safe and happy travels.